ICS4U. Here is calling a class from another file. And in IntelliJ, I've already created a new project called Rectangle with a capital R. I'm going to right click on SRC because I haven't done this yet, and I'm going to go to New Java Class, call it Rectangle. So in this example, we're going to be doing similar what we did with our Circle class, but we're going to be using Rectangle instead. It's just a slightly different formula, right? So I'm going to, in my class, I'm going to create two state variables. So public double. Remember, we always use public double when we're making our state variables because we want these things to be available anywhere, including our main method if that's in a separate file. Length and width are the two important things we need for a rectangle. So state variables. Now we'll make our constructor. Remember, the constructor allows us to get the values from our main program into our class. Think of the class as the castle. The main program is like the wilderness. There's all kinds of diseases and dangerous things out there. However, that's where we're getting our length and width from. We don't want the horseback rider who has the values of length and width inside of our castle, but we're going to allow them to shout it to us from the moat or the castle gates, and we'll copy that into the things that are safe to be inside of our rectangle class castle. So we're going to say, here's our constructor. Always start with public, so the constructor is available everywhere, and you have to use the same name as the class, so public rectangle. And the two values we'll be getting two doubles from the wilderness, I guess. So double L for length and double W for width. And curly braces. And here is how we will get it inside of the castle walls. We have our two safe state variables that are inside of our castle, inside of our class, called length and width. So we'll say, well, length, we're going to make length equal to the value that they shouted out for L, and we're going to make width, our safe variable width, equal to whatever they shouted out for W. Okay, so our constructor's done. Now, method called area with no parameters. So because we don't need parameters, it's just going to be public double area and return, and it's really simple here. We're just going to return length times width. And I know you're probably saying, what's the point of making a class if it's such an easy calculation? Well, we're just learning how to make classes. So the whole point of this is to get familiar with the notation and the construction of a class. So keeping it as simple as possible is probably best. That's why we're doing it that way. Okay, we'll also have another method called setLength. Notice I'm using a camel caps notation, where if there's a compound word like setLength, the first word is all lowercase. The second word starts with a capital letter, so setLength with a capital L. So setLength and public void, because we're setting the length, but we're not returning anything to the user. So setLength, all we're doing is getting a new value. We're not calculating anything. Length equals new length. By the way, in Java, if you have a structure that has a body, like a method, or a for loop, or a while loop, or any of these things that are encapsulated in curly brackets, if you only have one line of code, you can omit the curly brackets. Okay? So this is perfectly legal or acceptable to... Oh. Okay, we're not going to do it for methods. I thought you could. You can do it for for loops and while loops for sure. Let's just keep the curly brackets for the methods. All right, we're going to... Okay. Here's the completed class with the instructions. And to run this from a separate file, what we'll do is we'll right-click on SRC in your left side there. Right-click on SRC, go to new Java class, and let's call this test rectangle, or whatever you want to call it, something different, or I'm calling it test rectangle. And this is where our main method will go. So you'll see now we have two classes. I'm going to, in my test rectangle, I'm going to say public static void main, like we always have, string args. And in here, we'll create a new rectangle object. So a new object from the rectangle class. Rectangle rec1 equals new rectangle. And if you look carefully at the instructions in our blueprint in our class, it shows for the constructor, it takes in two parameters, a length and a width. So we'll give it two parameters. We'll give it 3 and 4. And the hinting that goes on with IntelliJ, it's hinting to us, it's showing us that L is 3, W is 4. Once again, I didn't type that in. All I typed in was 3, 4, and it's showing that automatically, which might be confusing to you at home. Don't type in L colon and W colon. IntelliJ does that for you. Now, we will use our method, and I have it in front of me here, so I remember, so you're going to access the name of your object, rec1, and what methods are available. If you type in the dot, it's not compiled yet. I think it's not compiled yet. Oh, this should not be a curly brace. This should be a semicolon. Okay, so I put there you go. So what is it hinting at here? It's showing me that I can access the length or the width, and it'll show me a value, but there's also something called area that we created, and that was user created. We created it ourselves. So we're going to say area, bracket, bracket, semicolon. So let's see if it works. We will use the hammer here to build project, hammer icon, and then run. Once it's done, it says error. So what did I do is my error here. So for my error, what I did is, so once again, I have too many curly braces. So we have a curly brace matching up for the class. That should probably be brought back out. I'll get rid of that curly brace and try running it, building again. And as I'm building, everything looks good, so I'll run it. I'll run the test rectangle class, and where my main method is. And we should see the value of the area for a rectangle with length 3 and width 4, and we get 12. So that's working fine. So this video has gone over how to make a class and then have a separate file that allows you to access that class from a main method. And this is the preferred way to do it. This is how I'd like you to structure your projects. And if you're using something like Genie, which doesn't have projects, you just create 2 files and make sure they're in the same directory or they're the same folder, and it works the same. So that's it for this short lesson. It's just another you've seen another example of creating your own class here, but this time with rectangle.